So, good evening, everyone. I'm very pleased to be able to introduce Shirley for tonight's talk. Shirley Bond is a master beekeeper. She is a BBK show judge and chair of the BBK's examinations board. She's involved in teaching beekeeping and associated skills at local and national levels. She quite often does workshops at the BBK Spring Convention at Harper Adams. Shirley has won prizes in shows at local, regional and national levels, including prizes at the National Honey Show for honey vinegar. She's going to give us a talk tonight about becoming a show judge. So over to you, Shirley. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. I'm going to share my screen. I've got a bit of a presentation to show you tonight, and I'm ready to answer some questions afterwards. One thing I would like to say is I'm a fairly newly qualified show judge, so I've only recently completed the journey of becoming a show judge. So bear with me on that. It was quite a long journey for me. I'm going to start sharing my screen now. I actually qualified at the National Honey Show in 2024. Hopefully this will work.
There we go.
So
Yeah.
can you see my screen now?
Yes.
It's good. What I'd like to emphasise right from the start is that becoming a show judge is not something that can be achieved overnight. It's a journey, a bit like an apprenticeship, and it'll take a significant amount of time and effort to achieve. Sorry, I'm having some tech issues here. Right, a good place to start is always the syllabus. The show judge syllabus is pretty extensive as it covers all the classes that you might find in a honey show. Before we go any further, I'd like to introduce some of the definitions that you need to be aware of when you're undertaking this journey. Qualifying shows are mentioned a lot in the syllabus. These are not just any show. In order to be a qualifying show, it must be a show with over 100 entries, and it has to be judged by a BBKA show judge. For that reason, I would encourage anyone who's involved with a show which does attract over 100 entries to make sure they use a BBKA show judge and consider offering a stewarding experience to an aspiring show judge. And if there's any possibility of them doing an assessed judging, that would be very welcome as well. What is a BBKA show judge? It's somebody who's undertaken this journey successfully. There's a full list on the BBKA learning platform. I've put a listing up there. You can see it's actually not that long. There are currently less than 30 active BBKA show judges. And another important term that you will come across is a prize card. And this is only a prize card that comes from a qualifying show. So first, second and third places at other shows are really welcome, and it's really nice to get them. But in order to go into your portfolio, it needs to be from a qualifying show. So what do you need to do? You need to study the syllabus and collect these prize cards and stewarding experiences. And you need to make sure that you keep all of this. You will need to present both your prize cards and your records of stewarding and anything else that you do associated with showing as you move forwards along the journey. Show cards. I've got an example of one here. And this has all the information on it that is required to make the card valid for your application. You need to know what show it's at, when it took place, the number of entries in the class. If you come first out of 2 entries, it's not terribly impressive. But if you come first out of a large class, then it's much more impressive. You can see in this one, there were 21 entries in the class. The class name, you need cards across a wide range of categories. This particular one is on commercial beeswax. I'm going to talk some more about categories a little later. Should have your name on it. And you need to have at least one show judge who is a BBKA show judge for it to be valid. You need to keep records when you do stewarding. All these stewarding experiences are really valuable, but unless you've got a record of it, it won't count towards your portfolio. Stewarding is usually extremely interesting, and you will get a lot of tips that will make your future showing probably more successful. Most show judges are really keen to pass on any tips that they have and share their knowledge and experience. The thing that's really important to remember is that you do need to get the signatures of both the show judge and the show secretary, and keep this. With everything else going on at a show, it can sometimes be easy to forget those things. I mentioned earlier the categories. There are 18 categories. These are all in the syllabus and show judge information pack, so you don't need to copy them or anything. I have highlighted the first 2 classes, liquid honey and granulated honey and soft set honey. These are the 2 really important ones that you must have cards in, and you need to get involved in those when you're stewarding or doing any judging yourself. The reason I've highlighted the observation and nucleus hives at 14 and 15 is that these are classes that don't appear in many shows. So if you have the opportunity to enter them, it's really good experience. And stewarding for a judge when they're judging those is also really good. The greater the number of categories you have experience of, the better, because you'll appreciate all the preparation and effort that goes in to making those entries prize winning. And that's the sort of experience that you need in order to judge when the time comes. So in order to prepare to enter, there's a list there, and the prize cards that you will inevitably gain as you go through this, it's useful to organise those by category, the categories that we've just looked at. I kept mine in a loose leaf folder and kept it updated. I used some photo holders where you could put 4 to a page. These show cards tend to be A5 in size, or sometimes a bit smaller, but with A5 size, you can put 4 to a page in these, and you can then organise it in date order and have different categories listed as well. So you can see which categories you need to still obtain prize cards for. It is really important to keep those safe, because you do need to produce them at some point during your show judge journey. The other really important thing to try and get to do is to judge a small show. Once you've stewarded a few times, you've got won a few cards, you've got sufficient experience to judge a small show yourself. The first show that I ever judged, I think were only about 20 entries across 7 or 8 different classes. And the organisers were just really, really pleased that somebody who had a little more experience than them was going to come and share their experience at a small local show. The judges' toolkit. This is quite an extensive list, so I'm going to go through that in a little more detail. Starting with the white coat and hat. Here we've got judge and steward correctly attired. You are dealing with foodstuffs, so you need to be properly attired. Grading glasses. These are now required to be the BD glasses from 2015, and you need to learn how to use them. Any judge will be very happy to show you exactly how to use the grading glasses. I know Thorns supply them. I'm not sure that there are any other suppliers of these particular glasses. But you do need to have some. And if you're running a honey show, it's really good practice for the show manager or the show secretary to have a set of grading glasses as well. Glass tasting rods, honey jars or beakers, and tea towels. You need 2 honey jars or beakers. I find a plastic beaker and a glass beaker sit inside each other very well. A lot of judges use a couple of honey jars, but they take up more room in the judge's kit. The glass rods themselves, I've got some close-ups there. You need 2 different types. Those with a flat end are used for judging both the liquid honey and the set honey. And you'll notice in the middle there are some pointy ones. These are for sampling honey from combs for extraction, for sections, or cut comb. When you're judging those, you want to be able to taste the honey, but you don't want to spoil the comb. After all, the competitor may want to show it again at another show. You can use plastic pet listing sticks. They are an alternative, but they're no longer very readily available since the ban on disposable plastics. I don't think they give you such a good idea of the flavour either. Oops, sorry. So you need a good supply of clean tea towels and cloths, which can be dampened with some water. Remember that when you're at agricultural showgrounds, which is where many honey shows are held, there may not always be water readily available. So having a bottle of water handy is a really good idea. And you need the plastic bags to make sure that everything is kept hygienic. And if you've got wet cloths after the show, you want something to put them in so that your whole kit is not wet. A torch and a spare battery. The torch is used for examining all the honey, including combs, which are checked for granulation. It's also used for checking wax blocks and candles for cleanliness of the wax. And here I've got a picture of a show judge checking some liquid honey. Refractometer and magnifying glass. I'm sure you've all used a refractometer at one time or another. We don't check every bottle of honey for the water content, but sometimes when you put the glass rod in and move it across the top of the honey, it seems very, very liquid. And in that case, we might just check the water content to make sure that it is below 20%. A magnifying glass is really useful for checking for specks in honey, particularly set honey, little black dots, which have been shown to be insect excreta, can be found in some honey, and they tend to fall to the bottom of the jar. So examining the bottom of the jar with a magnifying glass is really useful. It can also be used to ascertain if a speck is an imperfection in the glass or whether it is actually debris in the honey. Scales, spare batteries, and a test weight. We need scales to check that wax conforms to the schedule. And it's always good practice to test the scales with a test weight prior to use at each show. And having a spare set of batteries is essential, because the last thing you want is to get scales out of the box and, oh dear, they don't work. It can be most embarrassing. You are going to be judging candles, and the only way to truly judge a candle is to light it and find out whether it burns correctly. So you'll need either some matches or a gas safety lighter. Just make sure if you're using a lighter that you refill it, or you carry a can of refill with you as well. You're going to be tasting mead and melomel and maybe even honey beer. So you need wine glasses. These are ISO wine glasses, and you need a minimum of 6 of these. The tulip shape of these is so that you capture the aroma of the mead. So you could end up with a glass with 20 bottles of mead in it. And you might have driven to the show, so you don't want to be drinking all that mead. Maybe you do. Maybe you need a driver. There's a proper spittoon on the left. This isn't essential. I used a lidded beaker such as that in the middle for quite a while, and I know some judges that prefer to use bucket with a lid. The corkscrew is essential because the white plastic top corks, which are usually required for showing mead, the tops come off sometimes, and so you then need to open them with a corkscrew. And it's always useful to have a few spare corks for the odd occasion when they do break, so that the mead can be resealed. A thin section stainless steel knife. This is for cutting cakes, and it needs to be a straight edge to prevent it catching on fruit when you're slicing the cake. And for safety reasons, it needs to have a round end. It's also really useful to have a cover for it. You're going to be handling cakes, so you need to have food safe gloves put on before you actually handle the cakes. A tape measure or a ruler. This is both for checking the diameter of cakes or wax blocks, and also to check the height of the weight text on honey jars. If you've got a commercial class for honey, you need to check that the weight text is big enough, because that can disqualify an entry. Now, caliper. You may wonder why you would need a caliper. There are classes where it is really important the diameter of candles. And the National Honey Show, there is a class for candles that are under 38 millimeters in diameter, and another one for over 38 millimeters in diameter. And some of the candles can be very close to those limits. So you need a caliper to measure that and check that the candles are matching in diameter as well. You'll notice again, I've got a spare battery there, because the last thing you want is the things failing on you at the last minute. You need a ball peen hammer. This is for breaking wax blocks. blocks. Some shows have a class for commercial wax blocks, and the wax block needs to be broken so that you can see the grain in the wax block. When you're doing that, it's really useful to have a cloth that will enclose the block so that you don't scatter shards of wax all around the place. This is a couple of of wood blocks and a polishing cloth. If there is polish in the schedule, or if there is a display that might include polish, you need a cloth and some unvarnished wooden blocks. It can be just offcuts, so that you can test whether or not the polish works. These are the extra things that you need in order to complete your kit. The apple or dry biscuit is to cleanse the palate. If you've been tasting a lot of honey, you need to be able to cleanse the palate so that you can go on and continue to judge another class. The marking sheets, there are quite a lot in circulation. And what the exam board is trying to do is collect them together, update them, and hopefully we're going to be able to include them within the information pack for aspiring judges in the near future. So your entry checklist. You've been working hard, probably for 2 or 3 years. Are you now ready to enter for the show judge? Your checklist is you've achieved the basic assessment. You need to do that in order to enter. You've got modules 1 and 2 or general husbandry. You've got 30 prize cards. Some of them need to be in categories 1 and 2, and you need at least 10 other categories as well within those 30 cards. And they need to be first, second, or thirds at qualifying shows. And of course, signed by BBKA show judge. You need to have had 4 stewarding experiences. If you can travel around and get these at various different shows, it's really good to have that. And the National Honey Show is always looking for people to steward there, and it's a really good time to get experience with lots of different judges. You can talk to lots of different judges and get ideas from them. And you need to have your toolkit prepared. People use lots of different things. I use a large toolbox that's got wheels on one end, so I don't have to carry it all the way. And I also have a husband who generally carries it for me as well. So you've got all of that. You're all ready to go. You feel like you're ready to move on to the next stage. So you then need to apply to enter and pay the entry fee. After that, your record of experience has to be submitted, and that will be checked over by a senior show judge assessor. They will decide whether or not you meet the requirements, and if they, having checked it, note that you have, then you will be issued with the show judge record book. The record book has quite a number of pages in it, and it can look quite intimidating when you first open it. But you've got 5 years to qualify. You will need to do quite a significant amount of travelling because you're expected to have experience over a wide variety of shows around the country. The BBKA is hoping to produce a map by the end of this month or early next month, which shows where there are shows around the country. If anybody knows of any shows and they don't think that they've been added into this map, please let the BBKA office know, because we're really keen, particularly to know about what would be a qualifying show, so those with over 100 entries. That map is going to look something like the Find Beekeeping Near You, and you'll be able to access information about the shows from it. If you want to enter steward at the National Honey Show, this is very much encouraged, and Enid Brown is the person to get in touch with if you want to steward. And if you're stewarding at the National Honey Show, let her know that you are on the judges' trail, and she will put your name forward above those of people who are not really interested in becoming a show judge. So, what's in the record book? As I said, it can look quite intimidating. You need an additional 75 prize cards, another 6 stewarding experiences, and you need to have judged a minimum of 5 shows, including some assessed judgings. The wider your experience of showing is, the better you will be able to judge, as you will be aware of the standards required to obtain prizes. Stewarding is absolutely invaluable. You're likely to learn something every time you steward, especially if you steward for various different judges. Most judges are really keen to encourage anyone who has an interest to improve their techniques and move forward on the judging journey. The last thing on that list is show involvement. This could be anything from being a show secretary to being the entries secretary, preparing the show cards, helping to set out the staging, anything really that's involved in the show. And most show secretaries are only too pleased to have somebody offer to help them. So get involved as early as you can in the process, because again, you'll learn so much from doing that. The assessed judgings. The requirements are listed there. You need to plan these well in advance. Judges tend to be booked for shows months and months in advance. So make contact with the judges, find out where they're judging, and if there's any chance of stewarding or doing an assessed judging with them. You may well also have to contact the show secretary, as both the show secretary and the judge must be happy to have you in attendance. There's quite a lot of work demanded of you to get all this set up. Once your record book is completed, there's the list of things that you will have in it. So you need, again, to be well organised. Have your portfolio up to date all the time. Those are the minimum requirements. The more experience you can get in all the roles, the more successful you're likely to be when it comes to your final assessment. The record book needs to be submitted to the exam board secretary. Again, everything is audited by an experienced show judge assessor. And at this point, all your cards, all your stewarding records, all your judging experiences need to be submitted in good time for them to be audited. Only when that's been done can a final assessed judging and interview be arranged. And that needs to be done at least a month in advance of the show where you're going to be doing it. If that is approved, you need to take your final assessment. This is a photo of judging in progress at the National Honey Show this year. At the National Honey Show, the final assessments take place on the day after the ordinary judging has taken place. And it can be quite intimidating because for the final assessment, it'll be conducted by 2 senior assessors with a moderator present. And there could also be a training assessor in attendance. Now, you're expected to treat this as an open judging. So you need to explain exactly what you're doing as you're going along. It can be really quite intimidating, but remember, you've done it before, and you, by this time, have at least 3 successful judging assessments under your belt. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been allowed to do a final assessment. So, if you're successful, you will be awarded the show judge certificate and badge, and you'll be put on the show judge list, and you can expect to be kept quite busy. As I said earlier, there are less than 30 active show judges at the moment. If you're not successful, you will be given some really useful feedback. You have the opportunity to get some more experience in showing, stewarding and judging. And remember, it's an extremely demanding assessment, and many people who are now very successful show judges were not successful at their first attempt. So do come back and try again. And for further information, some really good places to look, and I can't recommend it more highly, is John Goodwin's book on honey show classes. That is so useful to both show secretaries, people who are showing, and aspiring show judges. It's one of the most useful books that I've purchased. The other place to look is the National Honey Show publications. They're available on the National Honey Show website. And now I'm happy to take any questions if you have any. I'll see if I can. There we go.
Thank you, Shirley. That was absolutely excellent. That was really, really informative. Are there any questions? There aren't any in the chat. Bridget.
Where did you get your glass rods from, Shirley?
I have a very useful husband at times. And we bought some plain glass rods and he made them for me.
And he did the fine ends on them as well, did he?
Yes, he did.
Oh, I'll have to have a talk to Richard.
If you stretch, I wasn't allowed to play actually with a blowtorch. He heated the glass, and if you stretch it, the piece of glass, and then press it down onto a hard surface, that's how he got the little ball on the end. So, and then he heated it again for a moment or two just to harden it.
Okay. Well, I might give it a go, and then if I don't succeed, I'll have a word with Richard.
For a small fee.
Thank you. Alnage has got his hand up.
Yeah, just a bit further to the glass rods. I used to be a scientific glass blower many, many years ago. And make sure if you do buy some glass rod to stretch, you get soda glass. You don't get Pyrex because it melts at a much higher temperature. It'll be easier to draw soda glass rods, which bottles and jam jars are made out of, than trying to draw Pyrex out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jenny.
A source of glass rods is if you go to a stained glass workshop, then they quite often have glass rods, but make sure you get clear ones. Clear ones can sometimes have gold in them, which when you heat it becomes red at the end.
Thanks, Jenny. It's brought back memories of biochemistry where we actually had to make our own rods in I think our microbiology lessons. Any other questions? Ange again.
Jars I often get commercial jars, and there's so many faults in them all. Little black specks, air bubbles. How keenly do you judge the jars?
We want the jars to be from the same manufacturer, and it's in an ideal world, we would want you to get the best jars that you can. But we are aware that, particularly in the last few years, it is becoming more difficult to get really nice jars. And this is where I was saying we do try to establish whether or not if there are faults in the jars, it's in the jar and not in the honey. So if you can avoid jars with faults in them, please do. But I do know I've been
No.
through half a box of jars and
Yeah.
not managed to find two that are okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any more questions? I've got one, but I'll let Shane ask his. Do you want to unmute yourself, Shane?
Yes, thank you. We've organised at Doncaster Beekeepers our annual show, and for the first time in quite a while, we've reached the 100 mark in relation to entries. Before that, there've always been fantastic quality entries as well, and that's been confirmed by the judges, such as Alan Woodward and things like that, past BBK judges. Now, my concern is that locally, a lot of the small associations just aren't getting that amount of entries in. I know it's simply a case of trying to promote it more, but how does the association contact the BBKA to get that accreditation to be able to have it recognised as a show? So we get the 100 entries finally. How do we go about ensuring that they qualify for a judge's certification in relation to the number of cards they get, etc.? Does that make sense?
I think if you have had over 100 entries in the last year and you let the BBKA office know that, and you use a BBKA judge, then as long as next time you hold the show, it is over 100 entries, those cards would count.
Right, okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't know if the BBK would send out specific cards out to that show. Right, okay, that makes sense then. Right.
No, I think it's all about who's the judge, isn't it? That's the important thing once you've got to 100 entries. Am I right, Shirley?
Yes.
Yeah. And Joyce is nodding as well. Thank you.
The other thing with a show with over 100 entries, if you have a BBKA show judge, there is the possibility of a blue ribbon being awarded for the best entry in the show, which gives entry to the National Honey Show for a day for the person who wins it. So that might be an incentive for people to, more people to enter the show.
Hopefully.
One of the reasons for having this talk tonight is because if we can get people more interested in it and have more awareness of that process, we might get more people interested in stewarding and helping along the way, which will encourage everything, really. Lynette, would you like to ask your question if you unmute?
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I have a parrot. Again, it's about the a bit like the previous person talking about my local show. We regularly get over 100 entries in the show, but we've got prize cards. You know, I've got prize cards, but that doesn't say how many entries there were in the class. Does that mean they won't count?
I think that as long as the person who wins the card is aware of that requirement and they make a note on the card or ask the show secretary to make a note on the card of how many entries there were in the class, then if it's BBK show judge, then it should be valid. My understanding is that the templates that are available from the BBKA website are being updated, and that will have, the new ones will have that information, so you could download from there. I'm not quite sure when that will happen.
Thank you. Stuart, you're next. Do you want to unmute? Thank you.
Thanks, Shirley. That was excellent. Can you tell us a bit more about the travel and the pain that you went through, or potential pain that you went through in terms of your journey itself? How difficult did you find it? How far did you have to go? How many shows did you go to? That sort of thing.
I did a lot of travelling. I'm based in Darlington in County Durham. I'm fortunate in some ways in that there are a number of shows which are relatively local to me. 2 in Harrogate, the Emily show and Egton show are all over 100 entries, as is the Cleveland show. So they're all within about 100-mile radius of me. But I went across to Lancashire for the Lancashire Honey Show. I was in Southport. I judged that on a number of occasions. I went to Belfast to judge over there. I was down in Essex, and I've lost count of the number of times I've attended the National Honey Show. But that's the sort of journey that every aspiring honey judge has to be prepared to make.
Thank you.
I will ask my question now. What's your favourite class to judge?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I really quite enjoy judging candles. It's particularly enjoyable at the National Honey Show because you actually get to burn them for a sensible amount of time at the National Honey Show. At many shows, you can't really burn them for sufficient time. And at some agricultural shows, when it's in a marquee and there may be it may be quite windy blowing through there, it's not really possible to burn them at all.
Thank you. Does anyone else have another question for Shirley? Oh, Richard does. Do you want to unmute, Richard?
Yes, I'm a new beekeeper, and I was involved in my first honey show just recently for our association in Epping Forest, which was absolutely wonderful. But I wondered what the percentage of beekeeping associations because there are many beekeeping associations, and I suspect they all may have their honey shows, but what percentage there are, do you know, that are actually over 100 entries and sort of qualify?
I do not know the answer to that question. I don't think that the BBKA actually knows the answer to that question. I think it's something that we're trying to compile a list of, isn't it, Diane?
It is, but it is a movable feast, because if you got 105 entries last year, this year you might get 99. But the idea is for us to collate information on shows, and hopefully that will encourage people to do more show entries, which keeps that number over 100 and then makes them qualifying. It's very much a chicken and egg thing. You've got to decide which comes first, and we're pushing lots of different angles but it all has to go the same direction to encourage people to take up entering shows so that we can have more show judges made. And it's really important that we keep this tradition alive, because it's really valuable to us. Showing honey, and it was Joyce who's on the call actually told me this, it's really important because it helps us produce a much better product for the end consumer if we become aware of the standards involved in showing honey. It makes sure we think the jars are clean, they're not sticky, the lids are nice. These are all things that are important. This is a food product after all. And all the candles and cakes and things are lovely add-ons. And I've made some honey fudge recently. That was very nice. Thank you for the recipe, Joyce. Right, we've got more questions now. Bridget.
You've got 2 more on the chat as well when I finished. You're collecting honey shows, but there's also some that I know of around me that are, what do they call it? Members only. They're not open shows, and they have more than 100 entries, but would you want to publicise those because they are closed show?
It might be somebody doesn't mind joining the association to be able to show. I think that happens in some places, doesn't it?
Yes. I know of one lot that wouldn't be too keen on somebody out of county joining them.
Yeah, I was going to say some of them have got distance restrictions on them.
Yes.
But it is an opportunity for people to judge, though, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. They do want people from outside to come in and judge, but it's not open to enter to anybody outside the county.
Thank you. Jacqueline, do you want to unmute?
I was just going to say the same as Bridget, really, that there's just a lot of shows that I think are just closed ones. And I mean, certainly I organised a show for Guildford this year that was the first time in nearly 20 years we've had a show. And I did keep it closed because I wasn't sure how many entries we would get. But also I just wanted our members to benefit from it as our first time anyway. So, but maybe more people ought to be open to having some open classes, or maybe having it available a bit more. Also, Bridget was asking for some of your areas, if you're an associate member of Somerset to watch the talks and things in the winter, but would somebody that's an associate of Somerset beekeepers be able to enter some of those association shows or not? Do you know?
Yes, I think you would. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
When are you coming down then?
Well, I'm looking into it. Yeah, I'm looking into it for next year. Yeah, I'm getting there. I've got my applications in. I'm just in the middle of filling in the form listing all my cards, but I have had them checked over by Hazel. So yeah, I'm on the ladder.
Lovely.
So I'll be there sometime.
If there are closed shows, I think they can still go on the list. You just need to make sure that's quite clear in the description. And if there's a geographical restriction on entries, you need to make that clear as well. In the chat, Jasmine asks, are bamboo sticks allowed for honey tasting?
I really don't know. My preference is for using glass tasting rods. I think that both wood and plastic don't give the same taste experience as using glass.
Thank you. And someone asks, once you pass the final assessment, you said you can expect to get very busy. How often do you judge shows? Is it on a volunteer basis? Could you make a seasonal job out of it?
I think I might need to ask Joyce a bit more about that. I have been pretty busy. I think I've judged probably about a dozen shows this year. But once your name becomes more known on the circuit, I think you get invited to judge a lot more shows.
Do you want to come in on that, Joyce?
Yeah, yes. I mean, I would agree. I think one of the things I would say is that if you are thinking of becoming a show judge, unless you've got, if you're still working, unless you've got a very flexible job or whatever, then maybe it's something to think about towards the time when you're not working. That was certainly something I did, and my experience though has been that, like Shirley, it's about a dozen invitations a year, maybe even more. And one of the problems is trying not to end up with an awful lot of the summer and autumn completely occupied with judging. And that although you feel rotten saying no occasionally, sometimes you've actually just got to say no, otherwise you don't get a weekend off or you can't have holiday. Certainly sort of October, November, it's sort of to a week almost. It feels like September, October, November. And quite often as well, you're asked for the same weekend. The same day, the weekend. Yeah, it's there's a lot of demand out there. So yes, we do need more show judges, but I think first of all, if you're thinking of being a show judge, make sure you've enjoyed your showing yourself first of all. That's what I would encourage people to do. I thought it was a super talk though, Shirley, and it was really clear. Thank you very much.
Just to add to what Joyce was saying about the number of shows and things, an awful lot of shows are held on the weekend, but there are quite a lot that are held during the week. And a number of them where the judging actually takes place going quite late into the evening or even into the night. So those are other things that you do need to be aware of.
Thank you. Someone's asked, would it not be useful for the BBK to contact association secretaries and encourage open shows? At least there'd then be more open classes. I think we'll take that up as a suggestion. We will send out an email. Perhaps when we let people know about this, we'll alert people to the map again and ask them to think about having open classes in shows. Lynette.
Hi, yeah, I think that would be good. Yeah, my issue is that I have won quite a lot of prize cards at shows with over 100, but I don't think any of them are on the qualifying show list. We do have in Devon, we do have our EC meeting on Saturday. So I think I might raise the fact, because I know my own branch has an open show. We have the county show that I believe reaches the standard for a blue ribbon, and I know East Devon does as well. But I don't think any of these might be on the list. And they certainly don't issue certificates with the name of the BBKA judge or the number of entries. So I think maybe I will take that back to our EC meeting on Saturday and ask maybe we could kind of get some of these things in place and maybe make sure we could be on the BBKA qualifying show list as well.
I think the signatures can be interpreted, can't they? They are just a squiggle, some of them, but I think the show judges know who's signed them, and it is all about having that correct show judge having signed them.
I'm not sure the ones I have even have any squiggle or name of the judge. I think they're just signed by the show secretary, actually. I would have to go back and check that. I know the prize I got at the Honey Show last month, National Honey Show, looked very different to the other cards I've got. So yeah, I think that's just something to point out, because if we're wanting to get, it may not be me who's a show judge, but if we want to try and encourage within BBKA more show judges, then I think, we want to be able to have other people from other counties encouraged to come along and use it as an opportunity to get prize cards as well.
Absolutely. Richard.
In following on from that, if you do have an open show, don't take if somebody comes in and sweeps all the prizes, as Joyce witnessed at Bristol this year. It's just, you know, one of those things that's available, and it, I think, helps raise the standard overall, because the local beekeepers do their best and then see that there is yet another standard to be obtained. And the other thing I think is really good is when there is rivalry between branches. There's rivalry within Wiltshire between a couple of branches, and the rivalry between Somerset and Wiltshire at the Royal Bath and West Show has definitely raised the number of entries and raised the standard. I think. Would that be fair, Bridget?
I think Bridget's nodding
Yes.
there, yeah.
Yes, very fair. It certainly has, yes. But the rivalry can be friendly as well as...
Of course it is.
Semi-serious. Well, it is serious, but it's also friendly. So, but yes. But you're right about Bristol. They do get upset when non-Bristolians win their cups.
I think in Lancashire we don't let the cups out of the county, so we don't let them go across the Pennines. So, is that Elaine there, who's just put her hand up?
Yes, it is. We did actually change that. They can go out of county, provided they promise to look after them. But nobody has actually won them out of county yet, so that's a challenge for you all.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Shirley? Otherwise, I will call this a night. Thank you so much, Shirley. That was really good. I hope everyone's inspired to get some entries for the shows. I think they'll all be next year now. There's not many left now. But thank you so much.